The 2024 fantasy football season is over, but what is left over is the NFL playoffs, and that means DFS. We're going to be breaking down all of the NFL playoff games for DFS purposes to help you set these showdown slate lineups, and we're starting this week with the wild card round. This video is going to focus on the Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Stay tuned. Oh, Captain, my Captain, this is Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown Slate video. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. You can find me at the One Hudsonian. My partner here, Mr. DFS himself here at Club Fantasy, Austin Amandolia. You can find him at Austin_FFL. Austin, it's playoff football. Ready for some DFS talk?
Yeah, I think this is my favorite matchup on the weekend too. Should be an intriguing game.
Yeah, both these teams have some defenses and some pretty damn good offenses, so should be a lot of fun. We're talking, of course, about the Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And before we get into all this, Austin, tell everybody how they can play these DFS showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy.
Yes, you could join our league on DraftKings. We will be running contests for every single game this weekend. We also have a Saturday slate contest and a Sunday slate contest. Many options for you. Just click on the link that is in the show description on YouTube or in your podcast feed. Join this league. Come, try and take our money and have a good time while you're at it.
Absolutely. And of course, our sister site, Women in Fantasy Football, and their partnership with Trophy Smack. Head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Show some love to the ladies and help us continue our efforts to support women in sports. We've been lucky enough to send women to all different events. We're sending more to the Super Bowl this year. We want to be able to provide more than just the passes. So when you do all of your achievement-based shopping, go to trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. Get yourself a championship belt, ring, trophy. Celebrate those fantasy football championships. And from now until January 31st, when you buy a championship belt or trophy, get yourself a ring for free. Just add it to your cart. Use promo code WOFF, WOFF at checkout, and that ring will be free. Once again, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. All right, Austin, let's get into it. First category here is Captain Chalk. These are the chalky captains that everyone is likely to pick because you know the name and they are just that damn good. Let's talk about the likely winner of the Rookie of the Year. That would be Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, Jayden Daniels has been absolutely stellar this year. You already alluded to the fact that both of the defenses in this matchup are kind of and I would say the Tampa Bay secondary has also been kind of this year.
Oh, it's been more than kind of
They've looked good in recent weeks, but they've played the Saints. They've played.
Okay, really?
Panthers.
You're talking about a third-string quarterback?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is they look good by the numbers. So, like, if you look at the numbers in recent weeks, they've only allowed 13 points per game just to quarterback since week 14. But they played Spencer Rattler
in back-to-back games.
Yeah, it's not that rosy. Jayden Daniels has been crushing it. He can make magic happen. I watched it happen over and over again when he knocked my Atlanta Falcons out of playoff contention. I don't see any reason why he won't do it here. It's interesting to me that Washington are underdogs here. It is essentially, if it were a neutral field, it is essentially a coin flip because the spread is 3 points. It's basically what they give for home field advantage. However, I do think there's a good chance that Washington, at minimum, keeps it competitive. I think I could see them winning this game. And I think people are going to want to ride with Jayden Daniels because of that dual threat ability and upside. He's going to be highly rostered, and I think it's worth it. I think it's worth going for it. Especially just because he could soak up all of the production in this matchup.
Yeah, I think when you're comparing these two quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, fun fact, between the weeks of week 15 and 17 when your fantasy football championships were on the line, they tied for third with 29 fantasy points per game. I just want to throw that out there because obviously the money is going to lean Jaden Daniels' way. You can probably get Baker at a slight discount and likely get the same kind of production. So just want to toss that out there. But yes, Jaden Daniels, the dual threat ability, obviously that's going to come into play because he could very easily rack up 80 rushing yards with his ability to escape the pocket. Next category here is going to be the Mutineer. These are going to be the Contrarian Captain choices that offer some variety and upside in larger tournaments. Let's stay on that Washington side. Jaden Daniels clearly has a favorite target, and this has been a breakout year for one Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, see, Daniels definitely has a favorite target in Terry McLaurin. And McLaurin has been really stellar. He's been getting high volume. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's been getting chunk plays. Like, this isn't Wan'Dale Robinson where it's like 9 catches for 20 yards. He's getting actual catches, actual downfield throws. It's really nice.
And actual touchdowns.
All things that I'm sure he never thought he would see in Washington. And yet it is happening with Jaden Daniels under center. I think basically, like, if you are betting on Washington to win, you need to have a Terry McLaurin lineup as your captain, because in the chance that Jaden Daniels does not score a rushing touchdown, probably means that one of his receivers is actually outscoring him from a fantasy perspective. Terry McLaurin has the best chance of doing it, although shout out Olamide Zaccheaus, who has been heavily utilized recently. Also worth a contrarian shot in large field tournaments. We'll just throw that out there.
Absolutely. Let's go on the opposite sideline with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This young kid has really come on the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season. And I'm not talking about Bucky Irving, the other rookie on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mr. Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, Jalen McMillan has been a certified stud down the stretch. He's had multiple games in a row with touchdowns. He had a streak going there for a minute of 4 games in a row. I think he scored a touchdown last week too. So I think he's now made it 5 games in a row, scoring a touchdown. So there is a little bit of a fear that regresses, but I think that it is still worth betting on because I think it's how they utilize him. They are throwing the ball to him down the field, so he's getting those chunk plays and those long touchdown opportunities, but they're also using him in the red zone pretty frequently. I think it's just part of the role that they've carved out for him. Part of the reason that I want to be contrarian here is because we've talked about this in other videos. The wide receiver 2 often does as well as the wide receiver 1, or is as optimal as often as the wide receiver 1 is in these matchups. And so you're able to get the same amount of upside with lower rostership. And so that makes Jalen McMillan a very compelling way to get different off of one Mike Evans, who, as Josh will be happy to talk about, has Marshawn Lattimore to deal with this week.
Oh, you spoiled my bit. Damn it, Austin. Why did I spoil that for you before we started recording this video? All right, whatever. Let's move on to the next segment. That is going to be the first mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew. These are going to be the standouts that maximize your lineups. You know what? Steer into the skid. We're on the Bucs bandwagon. Let's talk about how Mike Evans is going to get outscored by that wide receiver 2.
Yeah, so admittedly, when I did this, I had forgotten that Marshawn Lattimore played for the Washington Commanders. So I feel less great about this now. But let me just make the case. If people buy into that narrative too much, you're going to have an advantage by playing Mike Evans. And even though Marshawn Lattimore shuts down Mike Evans, we have seen.
Also hasn't played a lot this year either, Lattimore.
He also hasn't played a lot. We have seen Mike Evans score a 2-catch, 2-yard, 2-touchdown game against Marshawn Lattimore. It's possible that he still scores points. Just gonna throw that.
Doesn't pay off his salary though.
Well, I do think it's still worth it. If Tampa Bay is smart, they would move him off of Marshawn Lattimore at least a little bit. But I do think Mike Evans, he still has the upside there, and he has been able to get Marshawn Lattimore at times. And I do think, especially as these guys age. I think if Mike Evans starts to get the advantage over Lattimore a little bit, I think Lattimore might be a little bit older, or just not aging as gracefully as Mike Evans has. So I still am fine going that direction. Although I'm less excited now about it that Josh has reminded me of the state of that secondary.
That's fair. But I also like your point. Like, you're going to have a lot of people like me that are going to openly avoid Mike Evans simply because they know that Marshawn Lattimore is on the opposite side. We've seen a lot of great battles between these two. Hell, we've seen them both get ejected in the middle of games because they're going at it. If people are going to lean into that, you are able to get different by putting Mike Evans in your lineup. And if he's able to take advantage of that, which again, we have seen in the past, you now have a leg up on your competition, on your tournament. On the flip side, let's go to the Commanders. Probably one of the sneakiest quality offensive players that they have had. Zach Ertz has had a renaissance season, being reunited with Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And a lot of the conversation with Zach Ertz the past couple of weeks has been like incentives, and he's trying to get all of this extra money by getting touchdowns and catches and whatnot, which he did get paid, and that did work out for him. But he is a certified part of this offense. And I think like the fact that they were able to get him those touches and those touchdowns with, I'm sure, their opponents knowing that was an incentive for him and knowing that was a possibility, it developed chemistry between him and Jaden Daniels. And I don't see them just saying like, oh, well, you got paid, so now we don't need you anymore. Like, that's not how this is going to work in the playoffs. Like, they've developed that chemistry. Now they're going to continue building on it. So I think it's definitely a great option to go to him, especially because on the Washington side, like the pass catcher options, they get kind of thinned really quickly. So it's definitely worth looking at Zach Ertz.
Yeah, and since week 13, Tampa Bay actually allows, on average, 14 fantasy points to the tight end position. So Zach Ertz finds himself in a really good spot to pay off his salary plus. Next category is going to be the deck scrubbers. These are the cheaper punt plays that can make a lineup based on one play limited opportunity. I want to touch on Payne Durham here simply because Cade Otton's been out. They put him on IR. Homeboy's been used quite a bit in this Bucs offense, kind of shining through the offense as a rookie.
Yeah, he has. And that's one thing about Tampa Bay is they like to use the tight ends and the running backs a lot, especially in the pass game. So Payne Durham, I think, is a totally great option, especially for the punt play. He's been getting red zone targets. He scored touchdowns. He's going to do it on very few catches, but he's cheap. His salary is reflected of that low volume, and he has the upside there. So I think it's definitely a good way. Again, this is another slate where a lot of the really good talent is really expensive. So you got to find the cheap plays somewhere, and Payne Durham gives a good option for that.
I love this next guy. Just wish they would give him some more opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about Sean Tucker.
Yeah, it would be great if they would give him more opportunities. What's happening here is I'm playing a little bit into the volatility of a running back by committee model, and how when there's these ambiguous backfields, you can just take a stand and get a lot of upside with it. So Bucky Irving is clearly the number one. Behind him, though, it's a little bit of Rashad White, it's a little bit of Sean Tucker. I am betting this week that Sean Tucker is the one that pops, that gets the big explosive play, that differentiates him, that scores the touchdown. This is also a salary thing because he's cheap enough that I'm able to pay up for some of those expensive players. Get a guy like Terry McLaurin or Jalen McMillan in my captain spot and still be able to play both quarterbacks, because that's another thing. This matchup, it's the highest total on the slate. It's at 50.5 points right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it hit the over, because both of these offenses are high powered. I want both quarterbacks in my lineup. And in order to make that happen from a salary perspective, I really do have to punt off a cliff. And I think Sean Tucker is an interesting way to do that.
All right, one more time. You can play these DFS Showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy over on DraftKings. Hit the link in the description, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast network. Click that link, join our league. More than likely, come take our money. We are for the people. All right, final category, the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. You got a pretty obvious last name in the bunch. Too bad. There's a reason he's a little brother. Let's talk about Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, this is really just for like the dynasty nerds out there that or like all into Luke McCaffrey, don't play him in DFS. He's not relevant right now. Maybe he will be at some point down the road. Like I know he's a converted quarterback to receiver, so like maybe that's why he wasn't as productive this year or utilized, but he's definitely not going to be utilized now in the playoffs. So don't play him.
Yeah, he's been a lot more special teams. He started early getting involved in the offense, but as the team, brought in Noah Brown, they've been utilizing Olamide Zaccheaus a lot more. McCaffrey's role has kind of went from here to here very quickly. On the flip side, Sterling Shepard kind of was the guy that sort of, took that Chris Godwin role after Godwin got hurt. And then Jalen McMillan said, hold this beer, and said, see ya.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I put him in here, because if you were playing DFS in like the week 10 span around there, you probably played some Sterling Shepard and like, oh yeah, this guy, he's going to be good. And if you lost all your money that week and haven't played since then and you're coming back, he's not still relevant. He's been replaced with Jalen McMillan. And also, like I said earlier, Tampa Bay relies on the running backs and the tight ends a lot, which means that there's actually not that many touches for a third receiver in this on the Tampa Bay side. So I'm avoiding Sterling Shepard almost in all of my lineups.
I think it makes sense. All right, one more time. Check out trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Get all of your achievement-based needs. Go get that championship belt, ring, or trophy. And from now until January 31st, use promo code WOFF. That's WOFF at checkout. Get yourself a free ring with the purchase of a trophy or belt. He is Austin at Austin_FFL. I'm Josh at the One Hudsonian. You, of course, should follow Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Be sure to like this video over on YouTube and, of course, subscribe to the channel. We will be dropping Showdown Slate videos for all of the NFL playoff matchups beginning here with Wild Card Weekend. And until the next video, we'll see ya.